Let's talk to Ross Clark. He's a columnist at The Sun. He's also author of The Road to Southend Pier, One Man's Struggle Against the Surveillance Society. Very good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Look, Paul Richards reckons, I've got my knickers in a twist, 2.3 million people signing a petition saying no to digital ID cards, this brick card app on your phone. We're all just really just being a bit silly, and there's nothing to worry about. It's going to be really convenient for us to have all our ID in one place. There's no risk to it, and miraculously, although no one's been able to explain why, it's going to deal with the issue of illegal migrants working. What do you make of those claims?
Absolutely ridiculous and absurd. There is no way that this digital ID card system is going to stop small boats arriving. There's no way it's going to prevent the Human Rights Act being used to deport criminals, terrorists.
No, but those people won't be able to get a job, we're told, and therefore they won't come here and work illegally because miraculously these employers who have not been checking their right to work will suddenly start check their right to work.
Yeah, we already have national insurance numbers which denote your right to work, and if you're an employer, you're not bothering to ask for one of those at the moment. Why should you suddenly start asking for a digital ID? It's completely absurd.
It's bewildering.
Pick up on one thing, an incredible arrogant thing that Paul Richards said there. He said, we've all got smartphones. Yeah. I just looked up the statistics for this. Between the ages of 25 and 55-year-olds, about 99% of people have smartphones. Over 65s, it drops to 82%. And then when you go the over 75s, it drops to 72%. Yep. There's very good reason for that. It's because if you've got arthritis, if you've got poor eyesight and so on, a smartphone is a very difficult
absolutely.
piece.
And again, it's stuff that we've kind of almost, I didn't grow up with one, but like youngsters growing up with them, and I certainly had them since my, since my 30s, and therefore it's very, you're used to having a mobile phone. A lot of these people don't even have a brick phone. But the crucial thing here is the idea that, okay, let's just say we all had iPhones or equivalent Samsungs or whatever, and just say everything. And what's the issue? Why should anyone be concerned about the government having all of your information on an app in one place?
Well, it creates a one-stop shop for fraudsters. At the moment, someone steals your identity. There is a bit of footwork involved in that. They've got to sort of collect information from different places. If we've got a digital ID database, they've only got to get into your system once. So, get into your phone.
They've got
your identity. And we've seen, from Jaguar to Marks and Spencer's and so on, the way that hackers are getting into these systems, which are notionally secure, it's not just sort of ignorant people who have falling victim to
their password is password. No, exactly. I mean, even the banks. I mean, virtually every big bank, big cyber companies. I mean, people are getting hacked on a grand scale, and we've seen the government routinely. I mean, just leaving information out. And that's the thing. At that point, someone's got access to your health records. You may have had an operation that you perhaps don't want your other half to know, or something. Your ability, your income. They've got access to every single part of your life.
And don't believe the government if they say they won't sell off this data to commercial interests, because look what happens with the electoral roll. Look what happens with the DVLA database, where the government just flogs off your information to these cowboy parking companies so they can issue their tickets and so on. We've had these databases, we sort of consent to these databases, and then the government doesn't stick to its side of the deal.
But what about the surveillance side of things? The concern that a lot of people have, and I share it, people have been paying attention to what happened during COVID, paying attention to what's been happening in China, the social credit system. So people say, oh, don't be so silly, it couldn't happen here. I mean, it literally happened here in 2020 and 2021. I don't know why people are surprised that it couldn't happen again. And this is the ability of the government to say, look, we can track what you buy, we can track when you've had a vaccine, we can track all your data in one place, and basically, if you haven't got up to date on your jabs, you can't buy things, you can't travel, you can't do that central data makes that possible, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and you can just imagine a future pandemic where we have a lockdown, and we'll all be tracked by our phones. You know, pop down the shop and spend 5 minutes too long outside your house, then you'll be sprung with a fine. You know,
and people think that's a joke. It literally happened.
Yeah, exactly. The possibilities for this, and this morning there's a story about, you know, the new nationalised rail company wants to use tracking our phones to charge us, you know, as an alternative to buying a ticket. We'd just be tracked on our phones. Well, you know, you've then got a system where you're tracking people around the country all the time. And
well, what about the argument? If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, Ross.
Even if you've got nothing to hide, you run up to the problem of dealing with this bloody technology. On Friday night, I tried to renew my driving license card. You know, these photo cards. It's always been fairly easy in the past, but now we've got to download some app to prove your identity.
Oh yeah, I had to do that the other day.
Circles of hell.
Yeah, and again, if it all doesn't work, how does it, you know, you won't be able to access things in your life. This thing about the card, you can lose it, but you can get it replaced. I think the key thing is just the fact that it's going to be something that is going to be updating constantly. We're going to be talking more about that later in the show as well. Big thanks to you, Ross Clark, for joining us, columnist at The Sun, author of the book Road to South Empire. Appreciate you joining us.